This is the number one mistake chiropractors make. They do not hold enough value on the adjustment. Chiropractors, they never were taught either how to properly adjust, or they were never taught the power, the value of an adjustment. So they don't value it enough. They will manipulate, but then they feel like they have to talk, they have to educate, they have to communicate, they have to spend time with them to give the patient more value. That's the biggest mistake chiropractors make, because they think that the patient came to see them. They didn't come to see them. They come to get an adjustment.
Welcome back to the Clinic Scale podcast, where we go behind the scenes with the world's best chiropractic leaders and entrepreneurs to uncover what it really takes to grow a sustainable, profitable, purpose-driven clinic that doesn't just survive, it scales. And today's guest is a true legend, someone whose voice, presence, and leadership has shaped the mindset and methods of chiropractors all over the world. Dr. Tim Young is the founder of the Focus Foundations coaching program, author of the best-selling book, Millionaire Chiropractor, creator of the Focus Adjusting Table, and the force behind one of the most impactful chiropractic conferences in the world, Focus OKC. His message is clear. Success doesn't have to be complicated, but it does have to be intentional. Whether you're just starting out or scaling beyond 7 figures, this episode is packed with hard-earned wisdom and battle-tested truths. So let's dive into simplicity, scaling, service, and legacy with Dr. Tim Young. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. What a pleasure.
It's great to have you here. Let's start with a key theme in your message, simplicity. You've helped thousands of chiropractors cut the noise, simplify systems, and finally scale. But why is simplicity so hard for most docs to embrace?
What I found through all my years, I've been in practice, this is my 30th year, and I've worked with chiropractors worldwide for over 20 of those years. One of the things that I see is that chiropractic principle, the principle itself is so simple. It is so simple. And even BJ, there's a reason that BJ wrote so many green books over and over and over. It's because people weren't getting it. And if you read all the green books, or read any of them, he breaks it down in a very simple principle. Well, chiropractors are too analytical. They go to school, they spend all this time in all the basic sciences, they learn all of this knowledge, and they get out, and in their brains, they think in order to be successful, they have to be quote unquote real doctors. And then they get it confused, and they think the general public wants to know everything they know. They have all this education and they feel compelled to share it with everyone. And what they don't understand, the general public, they just don't care. They do not care. They want to know 4 things. What's my problem? Can you help me? How long is it going to take? And what's it going to cost? But chiropractors get so wrapped up in their own world. Bill Estep, he's one of the greatest chiropractic educators there is. I've been really reading his book and studying him for almost 30 years. And we're friends, and Bill said one of the biggest problems that chiropractors have is they ear rape their patients. I thought it was such a funny analogy, but chiropractors just want to throw up all of their knowledge all over everybody, and then they complicate it. They complicate it with their systems because they're trying so hard to basically impress and educate everybody instead of just getting to the point and delivering what they come for in the first place.
Yeah, I totally get that. And you are saying these 4 key points that the patient needs to know. Your reported findings are quite short compared to sort of mainstream chiropractors, right? So in the UK, it's fairly the norm for reported findings to be about 30 minutes long. How long are yours, Tim? And why?
My reported findings, by the time they walk through the door, I show them their x-rays, I give them the reported findings and the adjustment. All of that should take approximately, depending on how many questions there are, 5 to 6 minutes.
5 to 6 minutes.
Yes. If you cannot explain to a patient what their problem is and what their game plan is and what you're going to do to help them in 5 or 6 minutes, you don't understand it well enough. And a patient knows that. When you spend 30 minutes with a patient trying to break down something so simple, about after 5 or 6 minutes, all they're thinking in their mind is that you are selling them. You are selling them. And and then proof is in the pudding. So you ask any, and I want all the chiropractors listening, look at your paid in full conversion rates. If they go up front, do they pay in full for all their care? And what is the percentage that do? Mine's 91%. There's not very many chiropractors that can say that they have a 91%, 16 weeks paid in full. Because
no way.
They understand easily what I'm saying. It makes perfect sense. But you get past that, and they're hearing blah blah blah, and that's why I do it the way I do it. I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I think a saying comes to mind: if you confuse them, you lose them. So I think we try and over deliver as chiropractors, from what I've seen.
Most chiropractors talk their patients out of care.
Yeah. Wow. So short but effective by the sounds of things. I mean, one of my mentors is Alex Hormozy. I love his work, and he always says
I
that
do too.
complexity kills execution. So the best businesses aren't complicated; they're clear, repeatable, and focused. So when you started scaling focus as a business, how did you resist the urge to overcomplicate and keep that lean and powerful? Similar to what you do with, say, your report of findings.
Yeah, what's interesting is, so I started like everybody else did. I was an associate doctor for the first 3 years in 3 different clinics, and then I joined a coaching group in 1999, and then I finally got a system. I finally learned a system that was being taught, and I used that system to grow from zero all the way up to I used it up to about 500 a week. And then I had, in order to grow past that, well, then I had to recreate that system because there were even things about it was cumbersome. And so I removed unnecessary things. And then I went from 500 to 6 to 7. My record is 937 in 3.5 days. Really can't sustain that for a long period of time. So I dropped down between 600 and 700 a week, working 3 days. So I was working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 hours a day. So 18 hours a week, between 600 and 700 a week. And I was actually getting paid. I wasn't giving it away like some of the old box on the wall clinics. Well, in order to do that, you have got to remove all unnecessary words, thoughts, and actions. You cannot waste a step. You cannot waste a word. You cannot waste an adjustment. You don't have time for it. And not only do you not have time, you won't sustain the energy. So when I created my coaching program and I created Focus, right? I created it with the exact same principles because that's all I know. Right? I don't want to teach another chiropractor. Here's the thing: chiropractors come to me because they want what I have. Right? I've collected over $1 million the last 23 years in a row with no marketing, with no advertising, with a 24% overhead. Right? Well, who doesn't want that? Right? And so now there's there's some sacrifices you got to make. You actually have to go to work. The program that I created is exactly the same principle, right? And so so instead of a bunch of written things and a bunch of hoops to jump through and a bunch of analyticals, there's so many coaching groups that they want you to all these KPIs and you got to do all this scripting and all these things. I simply took my cell phone and I put it behind me and I recorded everything that I did. And then I put it on the program. So instead of me just saying, do all these things, it's simple. Watch me, listen, watch, learn, and then go apply. And I've got doctors coming out of school, that their first 7, one doctor, little Amy Van, her first 7 reported findings that she ever did in practice, right out of school, paid in full, because she didn't overcomplicate it. And so that's one of the things about my program is I run my program, I run Focus OKC, I teach everything that I teach is the basic of the principles off of how I built the practice. Why would I teach anything different than what I used to create it? I'm not trying to complicate people's lives. I'm trying to make lives more simple and less complicated. Not only for the doctor, but for the patient. Let them understand chiropractic in a very simple way. And so that's really just, I create everything that I do based off the principles that I created my practice.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, so you said it lightly, but what's your record number of visits in a week? Like, what's the highest amount that you've ever seen in your practice?
So my very highest record, I was working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 to 1. This was several years ago. So I was working 9 to 1, 3 to 6, Monday through Wednesday, and 9 to 1 on Thursday. So 3.5 days. And my record is 937. I saw 300 on Wednesday.
937 visits.
Yeah. And I saw
937
300,
in 3 days.
3.5. I saw 300 on a Wednesday, and then I saw 176 and half a day on Thursday. Yeah, it was quite insane. It was that was my record. And then I said we did it, but then obviously when you hit a record, to sustain that, and that was with one table. I don't have open bay. I use one table, one room. I open the door, they walk in, I adjust them. I open the door, they walk out. Two CAs. So the three of us, we saw that. But then, what you do is you find your balance, you find your rhythm, and then we dropped down, and and then I dropped off Thursday morning, so I was just there 9:30 to 12:30, 3 to 6, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so 3 days. Because here's the thing, I had three kids, I got grandkids, I got all my things, and if you're going to see that kind of volume, I get a 4-day weekend every week, right? And so it's like me being on vacation, on holiday every week. I show up on the office on Monday. I'm ready to be there. They missed me. They're ready to see me, right? Wednesday at 6, I'm done. And it goes by real fast. But I sustained. I did not drop below 200 a day. I don't know, many years. That's what I sustained for a long period of time. And then when I started coaching and really my program exploded, I mean, in 1 year, I had 200 doctors in 23 countries in 1 year. So then I had to bring in an associate to allow me more time off so I could do more of these things. But that was my system. And this is one of the things that I need everybody to understand. That is with adjustments only. Like, there was no marketing, no advertising, no therapies. It was just simple. That's my tool. And I talk about this a lot. I built my practice with one tool, the adjustment. And so that's, we can talk about that more later, but that's how I did that.
And how long
That's
did
my record.
those?
My record is 60. My record. I found a note. I forgot. I don't mean to interrupt you. I just found this. I saw 62 in 1 hour is my record.
62 in 1 hour. So that's like a one a minute.
Yeah.
One every minute.
A little less.
And they're just slightly under one a minute. Wow. So the CAs must be quite involved in that process then, because in the UK, it depends if you've got your pain-based clinics or your vitalistic-based ones. But
Yes.
usually more like your vitalistic ones, we're looking at sort of every 10 minutes, one every 7.5 minutes, and you manage it in under a minute. So what is it you're cutting out to
There's
allow you to do it? What do you think? What do you see with these chiropractors? What are they filling the time with?
Necessary talk. See, what happens is, and I'm in the UK a lot. Matter of fact, I'll be in London December 5th and 6th teaching adjusting in a workshop there at Heathrow. I'm over there twice a year, and I have a lot of doctors I work with in the UK. So all the chiropractors, all doctors listening, this is the number one mistake chiropractors make. They do not hold enough value on the adjustment. Your patient come to you instead of a physiotherapist, a massage therapist, a counselor, their best friend. They come to you for one reason only. One reason: the chiropractic adjustment. Now, chiropractors, they never were taught either how to properly adjust, or they were never taught the power, the value of an adjustment. So they don't value it enough. So they will manipulate, but then they feel like they have to talk. They have to educate. They have to communicate. They have to spend time with them to give the patient more value. That's the biggest mistake chiropractors make, because they think that the patient came to see them. They didn't come to see them. They come to get an adjustment. The other thing is, because they do not value and understand the proper chiropractic adjustment, the specific intentional adjustment, they manipulate. And I know the UK schools teach this, and the United States, not just the UK schools, all schools, they teach manipulation. Well, you can manipulate, 2 or 3 areas in the upper back, both sides of the lower back, maybe pull on the feet. You can adjust 2 or 3 places in the neck. And all you're doing is manipulating the spine. You're not really doing anything but just beating up on the patient, really. And then that takes time, but it also takes energy. So you're taking too much time doing that, too much energy. And I'm going to tell you a lot of things too. Another thing is, clinic design. The clinics are not designed. That's another thing I do is in our group, I do a lot of floor plans. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I don't know. Do you know Michael Mason? He's over there. He's in Chichester. I always say
Yep.
it wrong.
Yep.
So when I first met Michael, when he joined the group, I flew down there and I spent time in his office. His first clinic was 3 stories because in the UK, everything is compressed. So he was having to go up and down the stairs all day long to see patients. It was insane. His CA was having to go up. His CA's calves looked like diamonds because she was running up and down those stairs all day. Well, we moved it. We recreated, redesigned the clinic. He moved it quite a ways out. And it is, if you want to see something beautiful, go see Michael's office. 1 level, several doctors. I mean, they are just killing it over there. So it's design. You got to make sure that your design is like mine is only 1,900 square foot. But I only use about 900 square foot of it, and it's visual. It's non-communication, so non-verbal communication with my staff. I open the door, they can see me, I can see them. So, and we use things like hand signals: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 1 week, 2 weeks. So I don't have to tell my CAs when I'll just look. They'll look at me, and I'll do that, and they look up at the patient. Okay, Dr. Young, we'll see you next Monday. I mean, it's all about design, creating a system. The number one mistake chiropractors make in their office is they want to be interesting instead of interested in the patient. They want the patient, they feel like the patient came to see them because they're charming, because they have a great personality, and all those things. There is no way I can see, as many as I've seen in a short period of time if I was having a conversation with them. Now, the argument that you're going to hear is this: well, you cannot be giving good care, seeing them that quickly. That's what everyone says. Then my question simply is this: then why are they there? Why did they show up? Why did they come back? Why did they refer? Why did they pay? Right? If I wasn't giving them good care, they'd just quit coming, and I wouldn't be able to see that many people. But there's a reason I average 50, 60 new patients a month, word of mouth, and most chiropractors don't.
Well, they're coming to see you to get the results, right? They're not coming for the chat. They're there for the results.
And they get the results from the adjustment. The chiropractic profession rewards chiropractors. It does not reward, chiropractic does not reward physiotherapists. It does not reward anything else. The chiropractic profession will reward the chiropractor being a chiropractor with the adjustment. That it can't get any more simple than that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you didn't just coach chiropractors. You've created a full ecosystem here with the Focus Foundations, the Focus Adjusting Table, and then Focus OKC. So it's not just business; it's a movement, isn't it? I mean, where did that all start for you? Like, how did you know when to launch each piece of that puzzle?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Young in practice, married, 3 kids. My whole world was just to survive in the beginning, like many of us. You get out of, I was chosen to be a chiropractor. My uncle was a chiropractor, but that's not what I wanted to be. And I was in the Navy. I was injured. They wanted to do exploratory surgery. I said, no, you're not. God laid his hand on my shoulder, said, you're going to be a chiropractor. And so I didn't even know what that meant. And I did not go to school to be successful or make money because I never had it. I grew up poor. I didn't even know what that was. I just knew in my heart that this was my path. And then I get out of school, and then, associateships and your survival, just like so many that may be listening to this right now. Well, when I was in school, the greatest lesson, the greatest gift, and in my book, I mentioned him, my teacher, Dr. Hugo Gibson. He didn't talk to me about money. He didn't talk to me about being successful. He never talked to me about volume, how many you see, how many you could see. What he poured into all of us, but I was one of the few that actually listened, was that the miracle of chiropractic, the beauty of chiropractic, the essence of chiropractic was that specific intentional adjustment. And if you move the bone and get out of the way and allow NA to take over, the body will heal. Then you'll get the results, right? That's all I knew getting out of school. And that's what I built the practice on. Along the way, you've got to create systems in order to handle the people, and you got to be able to articulate your message You got to be able to communicate, but it's the adjustment. So I built and I grew and I built, and I had no ambition to move the profession in another direction. I was just trying to survive. And then we went from survival to thriving to success. And then I created this great big practice, and life was amazing. I was just having so much fun. I mean, I had this huge practice. My kids are all successful. They're all in sports. I'm a competitive bodybuilder. I'm competing all over the country. My wife is competing. We just created a life that was just abundant through chiropractic. Well, then there comes a point that you start working with other chiropractors, and I was in a coaching group, and then they would, and then I become one of the coaches. I become one of the assistant coaches because I just loved what I did, and people saw my success, and they would ask me questions, and I would answer those. Well, then when you start listening to their questions, you start realizing, well, wait a minute, why aren't you creating this practice? Why aren't you living in abundance? Why aren't you loving life as much as I am? And then you start really taking it personal. And I did anyway. I took it personal. And then what happened what happened was I started searching for answers. And then I started going to conferences like Cal Jam. Billy DeMoss became a friend of mine. I started surrounding myself with thousands of other chiropractors, and I'm listening to the chiropractic leaders, and I'm really trying to learn for myself to get a better perspective on what's going on in the profession. See, I was kind of isolated in my own little coaching group, my own little bubble, and I started expanding to the whole profession. And then I started teaching my technique over with Ryan Reeder over in the Hulsa Hub over in Windsor. I came over. That's when I first started coming to UK. And I started listening and having conversations with UK chiropractors and chiropractors from Scotland, chiropractors from all over the world. And like, wait a minute, the message is being diluted. The principles are being washed away. The technique is being just bastardized, really. And then it hit me. I have a sense of response. I have a responsibility, first of all, to my God, because He chose me to do this. Second of all, to the profession that has provided me so much. And then when I started realizing that I had a bigger responsibility other than just to myself, I had a responsibility to the whole profession. Then, I won't go through all the stories, but it was kind of crazy how I was on a long bike ride, a 40 mile bike ride one night. And when I got to 20 miles and made the turn and started coming back, thought flash, like BJ talks about. Focus, the fountain of chiropractic understanding. By the time I got home, I already had the name, I had the seminar, I had the speakers that I wanted, I already had my talk done. And I told my wife I wanted to do this, and she said, okay, we'll do this next year. No, we're going to do this in 90 days. And in 90 days, we started the very first Focus OKC almost 17 years ago. And we had over 300 people, 300 chiropractors show up. And it has turned into a movement. And the reason it's a movement is because if I'm taking on my own personal responsibility. Everybody's got to do that for themselves. I'm not saying anyone else has to do this. You have to have, and I have, an unbelievable passion for other people. I love to help. My mother gave it to me. I have a passion. I have a passion for chiropractic. I have a passion to help. And so I've taken it upon myself to deliver everything that I possibly can to the profession. Because if I don't, where's it going to be in 10 years? I get asked that question. Where do you see chiropractic in 10 years, in 20 years? Well, I see it as not a chiropractic profession. I see it as a physical therapy profession. I see it as a primary portal of entry for medical doctors. People go to a medical doctor, they don't get help, they look for an alternative, they go to the chiropractor turns around and sends them back. That's what's happening. And it still might. But I'm going to do everything I possibly can. So my movement is to move chiropractic into the principle base. And if I say this, BJ said, I give to you a sacred trust. What comes next? Guard it well. And I take that serious. And that's my movement. When I sign books, I sign it, guard it well. Right. And that's where my movement comes from.
So would you say you're quite driven by mission here as well then? Is this how you've been able to create such an incredible ecosystem?
It is. I've always been mission driven. As far back as when I was 18 years old, and my brain I was real small. I graduated high school at 150 pounds. Like I was a 98-pound freshman in high school wrestling at 98 pounds. I was always little, and I'd had enough, and I decided I was going to be a bodybuilder. And another teenage bodybuilder that I went to school with laughed at me and said that you can't do this. You'll never make it. And I went down the road. I mean, it was my whole world. And 1 year later, just about 1 year later from that conversation, I won Teenage Mr. Missouri, right? And then so everything that I have done has been mission driven. I'm gonna, go to the Navy. I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL. Mission driven. Injuries, sideline that. God said, no, you're not. You're gonna be a chiropractor. Mission driven. I got through school. Then I was, I had heard Sigafus on a cassette tape. A lot of you don't even know what those are, but there is. If you go vintage, it's cassette tapes and listen them to. And Sigafus was talking about seeing 1,000 patients a week. I was seeing 20 a week, but in my brain, I was going to see 1,000. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no system. I had no coach. I was going to find a way. Now I failed. I only saw 937. I never saw 1,000, but I came close. My mission is my passion. My passion and my mission is to be the best husband I possibly can, to be better father, to be best grandfather, to be best friend, be the best coach. When I do coaching calls, man, it is intense. I just don't go through the motions, right? I don't go through the motions. I'm gonna change you by the time I got 15 minutes to change you. When I make an adjustment, I don't just manipulate. I don't just adjust. Every adjustment will be life-changing for that patient. They will know. And if any of you chiropractors have ever been in my classes and I've adjusted you, I've had chiropractors say, you adjusted me 10 years ago and I've never been the same since. That's mission driven. And you have to have that. You have to have that, or you're just good enough is good enough, and that's not good enough for me.
So would you say that mission came to you through intention? I mean, for those that I coach, I know they struggle with mission. And for some people that, they've struggled to get out of bed in the morning, and it's usually, I find, is they're not driven. They're not driven by a mission. Would you say like it's quite a challenging thing to find your mission? Or how would someone go about finding their mission and finding that why?
I think, you know what, that's a good question. And I agree. I see that a lot too. People are just, I'm just going to say it. I'm known to be blunt and honest. Most people are lazy. They're lazy and entitled. They have a sense of entitlement. They think everything should just be handed to them and given to them. And that's not the world. I got news for you all. To have a high volume practice and have $1 million clinic, it takes discipline. And not just now and then. It takes discipline daily for a long period of time. I get up in the morning. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. I'm at the gym working out at 4:30. I'll be 59 in January. I've been doing, everything I do is mission driven. But the reason people don't have a mission, they don't have a purpose, because they don't, first of all, they're not allowing themselves to think bigger. They have a scarcity mindset. It's a lot of the way they're raised. I hate to use that because I was raised poor. My father was poor as proud. Don't ask for anything. Don't want anything. The people who are successful, they did something wrong to get it. That's how I was raised. Internally, there's something more. And I think what happens is people in general do not look at life as a gift and their potential that they have to create a bigger life as a gift. They look for a cop out. I did a perfect example. I did a coaching call yesterday with a doctor. This is chiropractors and people in a nutshell. I did this coaching call and he's telling me things. He wants to grow, but he gets to a certain level and he falls back and all these things. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, who do you love most in the world right now? And he said, well, my wife. And I said, okay, let's just say she was kidnapped. And they left a ransom note, and it said, in the next 90 days, you grow your practice by 100 visits a week in the next 90 days, or you'll never see her again. Would you grow that practice? Well, and he starts making excuses. He starts saying, well, I would have to not spend as much time at church, and I would have to not spend as much time with my family. And he starts creating scapegoats. He started creating a net to, if he fell off the rope, they would catch him. And I told him, I said, I love you, but I've got to say something. All you did was create excuses to give me why you couldn't do it, instead of saying, with it would happen. I got news for you. Someone takes my wife and says that, I'm not doing it in 90 days, I'm doing it in 30. Right? And so most humans, what they do is they create excuses and they create lesser outcomes to protect them from having to take responsibility for their own actions. That's why people don't have a vision, because you get a mission and you get a vision and you say it out loud. Well, then now you have to be responsible for that. People don't want responsibility. It's too much.
No, they don't. They don't. But not everyone's built for entrepreneurship either. It's something that I found. Some people shouldn't be chiropractic owners, chiropractic clinic owners. That's what I've seen. The ones that are most successful that I found on this podcast, I only bring people on the podcast that are really thought leaders in our profession and beyond, really making a change. And what I notice is these people are often obsessed with their businesses. They're not just motivated, because motivation is only short-lived, it comes and goes. But they start with this motivation and then they become very driven. But then the ones that really make it, they're obsessed. They're obsessed with their processes, they're obsessed with their businesses. And like the example you've given, if a loved one's life is on the line, would you still take the action? And I think you really need to be obsessed with that process to make it a reality.
So I'm going to add something to that. And as you're talking, it's kind of revealed. Here's the thing. In the beginning, I wasn't obsessed with business. I hated business. I hated money. I was not a businessman. I was a chiropractor. Now, thank God I've got my wife, because she's a smart businesswoman. But here's really what happens. And for all of you that are like, I'm not obsessed with the profession. I'm not obsessed with growth. I'm not obsessed with money or success. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But if you've got one person, one patient that comes to see you, then you should be obsessed with the perfect adjustment for them. They deserve it. They got in their car, or in the UK, a lot of times they walk to your office, they laid on your table, they trusted you with their health. They trusted you. You said, you're a chiropractor, you could help me. So it should be the greatest version. My teacher, Dr. Gibson, says the chiropractic adjustment is a gift from your soul to theirs. And as a gift, it should be the finest example of who you are. So be obsessed. If you're going to be obsessed with anything, be obsessed with delivering the perfect adjustment. Now, here's what happens. That's what I did. That's all I had. I knew nothing else. I knew nothing about success or systems or growth or scaling. None of that. That was never on my mind. The only thing that was on my mind was the perfect adjustment. Now, here's what happens. When you deliver that adjustment, that patient responds. Chiropractic is beautiful. It works. They get well. And they get well when no one else could help them. So what do? They bring someone back. They tell someone else. So then another person comes in. All right. So now you've got two that you delivered that with. And if you continue to obsess over the perfect adjustment, now the next thing you know, you've got 10 coming in that day. Okay. Well, if you can help 10 with a perfect adjustment, can you help 20? Well, you better, because they're going to come. And if you continue to obsess over that adjustment, next thing you know, you got 30 a day, 40 a day, 50 a day. And it's an amazing thing. As long as you obsess over that adjustment, they keep coming. And what are you going to do? Say, no, I can't help you? You're just going to simply say, I've obsessed over the adjustment because I'm here to serve. Serve how many? Only the ones that you'll make time for because you want to talk? Or will you serve as many as that will come? Well, then what happens is, because you decided, I'm a servant, I was called to serve, and I'm not going to put a limit on how many I will serve, then you got to create a system to handle them all. Yeah. Then what happens is, with all that comes success and finances and money and responsibility. So with great success comes a great responsibility to be able to maintain that, so you continue to help a lot of people. It works hand in hand. But it doesn't start, it doesn't start with being obsessed with, I'm going to be a chiropractor so I have this huge successful practice. No, that's like saying I'm going to win the world title before you ever step into the ring, before you ever put a pair of gloves on. You got to put the gloves on and focus on your technique before you'll ever win a world championship, right? It's the same thing in chiropractic practice. And what happens is chiropractors get in the cart in front of the horse. And then my question, and I had a chiropractor just reach out, said, I don't understand why chiropractors want to be successful. Why don't everyone just see enough people to have a comfortable life and provide for their family? And that is the most selfish statement and attitude that there possibly is. Why don't I just adjust enough to make me happy? That's selfish. That's disrespectful. And if you're obsessed with being disrespectful and selfish, probably the wrong profession for you, in my opinion.
I hear you there. Let's talk about your book, Millionaire Chiropractor. What do
Yeah,
you believe? What do you believe
got it right
are
here.
the most dangerous myths or limiting beliefs chiropractors hold around money, wealth, or running a profitable practice? I mean, the key is in the title
Yeah,
of the book, Millionaire Chiropractor. Can you just delve a bit more
yeah.
deeply into what that means?
The number one myth is that if you're making a lot of money, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. And what that is. That is an escape. That is a protection mechanism for lazy chiropractors. Is all that it is. Here's the thing. If you're making a lot of money as a chiropractor, you're serving a lot of people. It happens no other way. Unless you're lying to them and cheating them and stealing, that's all going to come back to haunt you. That's a contradiction. That's not what I'm talking about. Success in this profession is directly proportionate to the amount of energy and intention. It's a direct reflection. It's a direct reflection. Money and success, having $1 million a year practice, is a reflection of the amount of intention and attention you put into the adjustment, to your practice, to your articulation, to you as a human being, to your health, to your energy, to your focus. All those things are a relation. The chiropractors, what they do is, because in order to do that, you have to work. Man, you got to work. You got to work on you. Here's the thing. In this book, talks nothing about being a millionaire. It's kind of, if you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich. Have you read that book?
Yeah, I've read that one.
Okay, I've read it probably
Brilliant.
30 times. In that book, does he ever talk about being rich? Ever? Not one time. All he's doing is he's talking about what does it take? What do you have to create inside of you to create success? It's the mindset. I don't talk about money at all in this. At all. I talk about it's more important who you are. This is one of the biggest principles in this book. Who you are is more important than what you do, because what you do is a direct reflection of who you are. And so when you step into the office, are you prepared to serve? And if you're prepared to serve, then you're going to be successful. But then the problem is with chiropractors, they've used this success because they've been taught this. And I'm going to tell you something. The schools and families are responsible for this. You got to think about something. The schools are taught by failed chiropractors or failed business people. They are. They didn't make it, and they needed a job, and then they got a job at the school. Now they're teaching the young chiropractors that you're not going to be successful. I wasn't, and if I wasn't, you're not going to be, because that makes them feel better about themselves. And so the chiropractors
It already sets them up for failure, doesn't it?
Sets them up for failure. And I actually told this to one of the largest chiropractic schools in the world. I said this to an administrator that works in the administration, and he agreed with it. He said, well, you got a point there. He goes, but we don't have a choice. Who's going to run the school? And I said, well, but you asked me the question. The biggest subluxation in a chiropractic success is they've created in their brains, and maybe their family. They come from a family that was somewhat poor, not successful. And when they start making money, they feel guilty. Chiropractors, listen to me. Ever feel guilty about being a successful chiropractor, because the only reason you are is because you are serving lots of people. That's just it. And if you want to be a successful chiropractor, serve a lot of people. It's just that easy.
Absolutely. Well, that was one of the things we discussed before our podcast today. I asked you what's the biggest challenge in business right now, and you said overcoming the scarcity mindset of the profession. And that's a big one. I mean, Tony Robbins says success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. So do you agree that most chiropractors don't really have a systems problem? They have a mindset problem to begin with?
Well, absolutely, because if they had the right mindset, they would create the appropriate system. Their systems are created and designed. I just did a video about this. Their systems are created and designed to accommodate their mindset, right? I'll do it. My system will all do it this way, so it doesn't challenge my mindset. I love Tony. You brought up Tony Robbins. This is a perfect example of this. Tony Robbins is my hero. And I went to a business mastery, and I was working with one of his coaches. And his coach said to me, he said to me, because I was kind of struggling a little bit. I was struggling with trying to get through like this topic, get through to chiropractors about being successful. And he said, let me ask you a question. He said, do you know who Bernie Madoff is? And for those of you who don't know who Bernie Madoff is, he was a guy that had this scheme, and he stole millions and millions of dollars from people out of the retirement funds. He got them to invest with him, and he stole it all from them. So like tens of thousands of people lost everything because of this man. He had, and this guy said, this man has a $30 million penthouse that overlooks Manhattan in New York. How does that make you feel? Well, anybody that knows it would make them angry. They're like, I said, I'd like to push him off the balcony because what he did, he robbed and steal for his success. And I said, okay. And he said, Tony Robbins has a $200 million mansion in Florida on the water at West Palm Beach. How does that make you feel? And I said, good for Tony. Good for Tony. He goes, why? Why is it good for Tony and it's not good for the other guy? I said, because Tony has served and helped millions in his life. He said, exactly. Understand that you are serving and helping so many people. They want you to be successful. And chiropractors, what happens is they get it backwards. They're like, well, if I serve a lot of people, then I'm doing something wrong. If I make a lot of money, I'm doing something wrong. They created a scapegoat. They created a system not only in their offices and in their life, but they created that mindset you're talking about to protect them for the responsibility of being successful. That's all that it is. And it's taught. Most of the time it's taught, because I've got news for you. If I'm a president of a chiropractic school and I'm teaching and students come into my school, they would leave with studying Think and Grow Rich. They would be reading that, but they would all be taught that chiropractors should be the most successful physicians on the planet. They should make more money than any other doctor on the planet because no one can do what we do.
I 100% agree with you on that one. I feel so strongly about that. BJ Palmer said, you never know how far-reaching something you may think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. I don't think people realize in our profession how much of an effect we can have on society as a whole.
It's mind-boggling. It's unbelievable. I could give you a million examples, but I'll give you one that just jumped in my head. 1998, I have a family coming to see me. I was still an associate doctor, and I was just working in this clinic for another doctor. The mother came in, and then the father came in, and they had 5 kids, and they brought one named Seth. He was 6 years old at the time. And Seth was this little red-headed wrestler. He wrestled and just honored. He was just always in my desk, always giving me a hard time, just always just into everything. Fast forward. Last year, I was in Denver, Colorado, speaking at a conference. Seth was one of the other speakers. He grew up in my office, went to chiropractic school, got his degree, moved to Denver. Now he has 3 clinics, and he's one of the speakers at this conference. And what happened? I adjusted him because he was having some issues with wetting the bed and just different things. And I adjusted him, and all of it cleared up. You're one adjustment away from changing the profession. You're one adjustment away from changing someone's life. And so what an honor it was to stand on the same stage as this young man who stood there, 3 speakers before me, and said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the adjustment that Dr. Young delivered. So I could go on and on and on. I could give you a million different examples, but at Focus OKC, we give an award every year, and I decide who's going to get it. And it's the Millions Tomorrow Award. That's where that comes from.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, what an impact you've had on his life and all the lives of the people that he's now affected as a consequence of him becoming a chiropractor and running all these clinics. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, so you coach a lot of chiropractors through the process of scaling. What mistakes do you see most often when they start to grow? And how do you help them avoid losing their identity or burning out?
Well, again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about previously. The reason they burn out is because they're talking too much and they're adjusting too much. That's the first thing. And they're just doing too much unnecessarily. And a lot of times it's their system. They're walking. They're going from room to room to room to room to room. And you got to think, if you, let's say you see 20 people in a day and you're walking only 5 steps between patients. Well, that's 20 times 5, right? That's 100 steps. And then you start multiplying that, they burn out, they get tired. Most of the time, it's because they're trying to educate everybody, and people don't want to be educated, and they just get tired of talking. And so their systems are where they burn out. But really, what they do is they sabotage. The chiropractors get in their own way. And this is probably one of the number one things that I coach doctors through is when they start to grow, they get to a certain point, and if you don't eliminate things from your office when you start to grow, then it becomes stressful. You can see 10 a day really easily. It's not a big deal. But if you see 20 a day, now you feel tired. Well, it's not adding things. That my whole coaching group, the whole thing is about removing unnecessary things from your practice. I'm not going to add things to you. I'm not going to add procedures. I'm not going to add scripts. I'm not going to add things. I'm going to go through your system and go, oh, all this is unnecessary. And so what happens is chiropractors, what they do is they get to a certain point, and because they've created a system that's efficient, it causes tension and stress, and they get tired. Really, honestly, the reason they talk so much, it goes back to they do not believe in chiropractic enough. They do not believe in the adjustment enough. They think they have to talk the patient into believing it instead of just adjusting them like NA to teach them. Chiropractors get in their own way because they get to a certain level and mentally they block it. They block that growth. This is a perfect example of this. We're kind of full circle back to what you said about, changing the lives. I worked with a doctor in Sweden in March. I went to Sweden. I did an adjusting class and a workshop. We just spent just 2 days together. He joins my coaching group, Focus Foundations, and he sends me a message at the end of his first month. And he's been in practice 18 years. He tripled his practice in 1 month. And his question to me was, why didn't anyone tell me this before? I don't know. I don't know. He said, your program has simplified my life so much that not only did I triple my practice, I actually enjoy being home. When I go home, I'm not burnt out. I'm not tired. My wife and I's relationship is better. I get to spend time with my kids because I want to. I didn't want to before. I just wanted to go sit down and be left alone. So it's so important that, like you said, the mindset. But if your system is so inefficient that it's creating stress, well, then you've got to change your system. What's the definition of insanity? Do the same thing every
things
day
repeatedly and making no change.
Chiropractors are the worst at that. They are the worst in the world at thinking that if I keep doing this, and I've got doctors that will join with me that's right out of school, some 3 to 4 years, but I've had them 30 years in practice, and they will reach out to me and say, I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm tired. I don't want to retire, but I am tired. And then we change their hours, we change their system, we change the procedures. Now they're seeing the exact same amount of people in half the time, and they're happy. And that's, so to your point, that's exactly the reason chiropractors get stopped in practice, is because they never created a system or a mindset that allows them to grow. They created a system and a mindset that holds them in one place. It makes them feel safe.
Yep, that's very true. It's very true. I mean, you're a clinic owner, you're a coach, you're a speaker, you're an author, you're an event host. Are there any daily routines or practices you do to keep your head clear and your energy high so you can lead powerfully across all of those areas?
Yeah, there is. Fortunately for me, I've been very blessed that I have had the opportunity, and I've created a world where I am surrounded with chiropractic daily. I mean, you can see the painting behind me. I was commissioned by Frank Arnold, and he's in Mexico. That's the first chiropractic adjustment, right? That's what that is. That's Didi giving the adjustment. And if you look at the brick underneath that brick is from the building that adjustment was delivered in. Dr. Gibson gave that to me. So when they tore the building down, he got 2 of the bricks and he gave me 1. And then that on top of it was BJ Palmer's actual business card that he would hand out. And so I surround myself with chiropractic. So one of the rituals is if you want to be very successful in any industry, any business, any endeavor, then you surround yourself with that. If you want to be a successful marathon runner, well, then you're going to read every book, you're going to watch every podcast, You're gonna surround yourself with other runners. You're gonna get into that world. So being a chiropractor isn't being a successful chiropractor is not a when I go to the office and leave the office thing. It is you've got to be a chiropractor no matter where you go. And so one of the things I do, and I right now I've always had, and you got to understand, there was a day, just to put this in perspective, there was a day when I was, very, very strong marriage, 3 kids. My oldest daughter was a competitive gymnast. Now this is all, I want you to picture this in 1 year. In 1 year, my oldest daughter is a competitive gymnast. My middle daughter, she's in like Girl Scouts and those kind of things. And my son is playing football and I'm one of the coaches. So I coached football. I went to all the Girl Scout events and we had Girl Scout cookies and our house was the host. We had to park in the driveway because our garage was full of cookies. And then I never missed a gymnastic meet. So busy. So I have a lot of doctors say, well, I can't be successful because I'm married and have kids, whatever. So I'm doing that. I'm also a competitive bodybuilder. I'm competing. And that same year I win Mr. Oklahoma. I'm also in a coaching group, and coaching, I win Doctor of the Year. This is all in 1 year. And I grow my practice to over 300 visits a week. And we travel and we spend time with the family. So I did all that in 1 year. And so there's no excuse. You can't, I have doctors all the time. They'll call me and say, well, doc, you don't understand. I'm married and I have a 4-year-old and I'm just tired and I can't grow my practice. And it just doesn't hold water. You can't give me those excuses. And so I get up every morning. Every morning I wake up about 4 o'clock and I don't set an alarm. I wake up. I got things to do. Sometimes a little later, but I wake up. And one of the things that everyone can do is when you put your feet on the floor, just start your day with this. The way I do anything is the way I do everything. And you tell yourself that and you hold yourself to it. Listen, the problem that everyone has is they have no discipline. If you can be disciplined in one thing, do that. Wake up whenever time you get up. And I always like to get up early because there's too much to do. Put your feet on the floor. The way I do anything is the way I do everything. And so everything that you do will have a sense of purpose because you want it to be the best version of you when you do it. Whether it's something dumb like pour your coffee, drink your coffee, wash your cup, clean it, dry it, put it back. Take your towel, fold it, put it back in the drawer. It sounds silly. The way you brush your teeth. Brush them the same way. Everything you do has a sense of purpose. And then what happens is then that creates momentum. And then the way you communicate to your wife or the way you dress for the morning, the way you clean your closet before you leave, the way you show up to the office, the way you articulate with your staff, the way you adjust, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And if you will create that sort of lifestyle, it is amazing what happens. Things just start falling into place, right? Your life changes dramatically with that one simple little tool. And I'll give you one more. This is one more. I want an exercise. Do that. When you get to the office, all of you, you're going to love this. When you're in the office, as soon as you touch a patient, every thought you have is being typed out on a screen in your waiting room for everybody to read. Would you pay attention to your thoughts? Your conversation, every conversation is being typed out for everybody to read. So if you'll do that and that, everything will change.
Makes people so much more intentional, doesn't it? With that mindset.
And that's the secret. Be intentional.
But some of the things, like what you mentioned before about the first giveaway, it reminded me of my time in the military where simple things like making your bed was so important to our commanders, or making sure your towel was like folded neatly so none of it was overhanging. It's these small tasks. If you can complete these small tasks of the day, you set the rest of your day up for success.
That's it. I was in the Navy also. What do they teach you in the military? Attention to detail. Attention to detail.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not going to pay attention to the little things, when the big things come, especially in the military, when things matter, that lives are at stake, you won't pay attention to that. You've got to learn to pay attention to the tiny things. And that's why as chiropractors, the adjustment. I heard a chiropractor one time post on, or I read it, that a chiropractic manipulation is just something that some chiropractors do sometimes for lower back pain. And that's why he's teaching and not practicing. Right? And so the attention to the palpation, Where are you going to adjust? Why are you adjusting it? How you're adjusting it? What is the purpose behind the adjustment? The attention to those things. If you can't give that attention, then nothing else in your practice in your life is going to be successful. But if you can give those things the attention, the way you dress, the way you look. I show up, I start seeing patients at 9:20 in the morning, 9:20 a.m., 9:20. I'm at my office by 8:30. I'm there early and I walk through my office. I make sure my table is setting exactly at the proper angle. I make sure my wastebasket is exactly where it's supposed to be. I make sure everything was wiped down. I make sure that I am ready to serve my patients. Attention to detail. And if you can't even do that, well, then someone's going to trust you with their health. Somebody's going to come in with a 4-year-old that's got asthma, or they're going to come in with a migraine headache, or they're going to come in with sciatica so bad that they can't work. And they're going to trust you with that. And you can't even show up on time. You can't even pay attention to the x-ray. So again, it's a responsibility as a chiropractor. It's greater than just, honestly, this is so 90%, 10% of the profession sees 90% of the patients. 10% is what you and I are talking about through this podcast. They're the ones that are attention to detail. They're servants. They want to scale. They want to help a lot of people. The other 90% is what I call the pop and pray and hope they pay practice. It's just the way it is. And so if you don't want to be that and you want to move to the 10%, then listen to the things we're talking about.
Pop and play and hope they pay. I love that.
That's just what it is.
Tim, you've accomplished so much, but I know someone like you is always refining, you're iterating, you're building. Alex Hormozy says, the reward for solving a problem is a bigger problem. What's the bigger next level challenge that's stretching you right now? Something that big that you're working on now?
So with my coaching group, I want to three. My goal right now, as we sit here, my ultimate goal is to be coaching and have over 1,000 doctors, 1,000 chiropractors in my coaching group, learning the principle, learning the message, simplifying and serving thousands more. Because again, if I can take a doctor in Sweden and triple his practice, and then I got a doctor in Malaysia and I can double her practice, and then I got a doctor in Germany, and then all over the United States, if I got doctors everywhere growing their practices, then indirectly, I'm serving a lot more people. But bigger than that, if I have 1,000 chiropractors with the right mindset, this profession will course correct. This profession, it's like the profession is like a great big cruise ship, and it is off course. It is going across the ocean, but it is off course, and we need to course correct it. And if I can get 1,000, we can correct this profession. In order to do that, everything you and I have talked about this morning. It's morning for me. It's 8:19 in the morning here. Everything we've talked about, getting through the chiropractor's brain is my biggest obstacle. There are so many chiropractors out there that are being taught the evidence-based mechanistic version of chiropractic. And I am the vitalistic chiropractor. And the most successful chiropractors in the world are vitalistic chiropractors. But the evidence-based mechanism has been shoved down their throat and propagated. And so my biggest challenge is to get through to them, is to overcome that challenge so I can create more chiropractors, more chiropractic leaders. We don't need more people with chiropractic degrees. We need chiropractic principled leaders. That's how this profession, my life is great. I've got my success. I don't need more success, but my mission and my passion is the profession. And people say that, people will say that, and they'll say, well, we need more research. We don't need more research. Heidi Havoc is doing and Bruce Lippin is doing some of the most beautiful research in chiropractic, and no one cares. Nobody cares. No one's going to look at it. No one's going to read it, right? We need to create successful chiropractors that want to become leaders, and then they can lead the profession in the next 10, 20, 30 years. That is my biggest hurdle that I'm overcoming right now. And so in order to do that, I've got to take the coaching program that I have and what we're talking about, then I've got to do the same thing I'm telling all the other chiropractors to do in their practices. I've got to scale it. I've got to figure out a way to reach more. But then if I've got 1,000, how am I personally, one person going to coach 1,000 chiropractors. Well, I've got to now. So that's my right now. That is my. If you see my desk, that's what I'm working so much on. Here's a book that I'm going to share this with everybody. I'm reading a book right now, The Science of Scaling, and this is so good for chiropractors to read. But I've got to figure out how I can create this entity, this program, this movement to reach as many chiropractors that will get the right. How you never know how far reaching, right? We've got to get those in the profession to create a movement in the profession, because right now the movement is away from the profession. The movement is evidence-based manipulation of the lower back, refer back to the MD. That's the movement right now. And if we sit back and do nothing, that ship is going to be it's going to crash. It's going to crash in the bank. But if we work together, we can course correct this thing. That's where I'm at right now. And it's a great big. I've chewed up a great big task.
Well, I'm 100% with you on that, Tim. And I speak to a lot of thought leaders in our profession, and we tackle this question. I say, how are we going to spread chiropractic as far as humanly possible? And I've heard all kinds of answers like, we need to invest more into research. We need to get a seat at the table with the pharmaceutical industry so we can start talking to them and getting our research out there. Whereas my mindset is kind of similar to yours. It's we need to build very, very successful chiropractic clinics and build the leaders within this profession so we can actually build it from the ground up. Because if we're doing a really good job of marketing ourselves and growing our clinics, then naturally society's attitudes towards chiropractic will change, and we'll have this change that we're looking for. And people will choose chiropractic.
We've been talking about it. Yeah, we've been talking about it this whole time. How do you build a practice? One focused adjustment at a time. And then you do it again, and you do it again. And then the next thing you know, you've got, in Oklahoma City, I've been here 30 years. I don't know how many patients I have. My daughter she's a chiropractor. She's only been in practice a short period of time, and she's in walking distance of my office. And in that short period of time, she is the go-to person for pediatrics in Oklahoma. They're seeing over 500 visits a week, and most of them are babies, right? She's created a movement. How does she do that? She focused on one baby at a time. That baby comes in, she's going to know how to do everything they can to help that baby. Well, in the profession, listen, I want to share this with everybody. This was powerful. My best friend growing up, his name was Tim also, and he went to medical school, and he was the #1 pick in the nation. He was at Mayo Clinic. This guy was a genius. He was brilliant. He wasn't just another doctor. He was like way up there. And he came to my office one time and spent a couple of weeks because he was curious about this chiropractic thing. He was a medical doctor. I'm a chiropractor. And he observed. And like I said, we grew up together. He said, Tim, let me tell you something. I don't know what you're doing exactly. He said, but what I will tell you is this. You believe in what you're doing, and man, your patients believe in you. Then he said this, and this is for everybody that thinks that we need more research, or we need to work with the pharmaceutical companies or be accepted by the medical profession. Listen to what he said. Here's the problem with the medical profession. If we ever accept that what you as a chiropractor, what you're doing is right, then we will have to accept and admit that what we are doing is wrong. He goes, Tim, that will never happen. And he is absolutely right. The medical profession does not care about chiropractic. They do not care about getting people well through chiropractic. The pharmaceuticals damn sure don't care. They care about one thing: making money. All you have to do is go onto any pharmaceutical website and look at their mission statement: to make our stockholders money. Every MD gets kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. Their job is to survive and make money. If they're for the chiropractic profession, and here's the thing, we can do the most brilliant research, evidence-based, that proves that chiropractic is the greatest thing for everything. And it is going to be read by no one but other chiropractors. That's it. No one, there's not one medical doctor who's going to read chiropractic research and say, brilliant. They're going to say, well, a chiropractic did it, so it has no validity. But they're not going to do the research, because why would they prove what they're doing is wrong? So what we have to do is what you just said. We have to create successful chiropractors one at a time. One at a time. When I get off here, I'm going to do 22 coaching calls with doctors all over the world. And I'm going to pour into each one of them and create success with them. And they are going to go create a successful practice. What that is going to do is push chiropractic forward. Not more research, not pharmaceuticals, not MDs. It will not work ever, my opinion.
Thank you so much for your insights, Tim. I really appreciate that. Before we wrap up, here's our signature closing question that I asked everyone that comes on our show. If you could put a message on a billboard outside every chiropractic college in the world, what would it say?
It would say, chiropractic is the adjustment. The adjustment is chiropractic. Plain and simple.
Love that, Tim. Thank you so much for sharing that. Chiropractic is the adjustment, and the adjustment is chiropractic. So simple, yet so effective. Tim, this has been such a rich, powerful conversation. And what I love about your message is that it brings people back to the truth. The real success doesn't have to be flashy or chaotic. It just has to be intentional. So
Absolutely.
You've built a business, a brand, and a movement that empowers chiropractors to simplify, to scale, and stay true to the reason they started it in the first place. So for everyone listening, if you want to learn directly from Dr. Tim, we've got something special for you, anyone listening to the show. So if you reach out to him personally, or if you go onto the Focus website, or you can email Tim on moveandbones@yahoo.com. That's spelled NZ@yahoo.com. He's actually going to offer everyone, for our listeners today, he's going to be offering your first month of coaching at half price. And I think there's a special code they have to give, right, Tim?
Yeah, it is half off first. So when you go to focusfoundations.com, and then you can read about the coaching program, you can read about me, you can hear testimonies, and my next events. I got an event coming up in London. I'll be in London the 5th and 6th at Heathrow. Everybody's welcome. If you go to upcoming events, it'll give all that information. But then if you want the first month of coaching, there's just a big button that says join now. You click join now, and that page will come up, and there's a code section. It says code, and if you put in half off first, one word, capital HALF, capital OFF, capital FIRST, half off first. Put that code in, and then it'll take you right in. You join, and then you're going to get all of my information. You're going to get the videos. You're going to get the Facebook page. You're going to get everything we have. And I was just in Australia, and I spoke to 50 Australian and New Zealand doctors. And out of the 50, 20 of them took me up on this offer. And I have been in constant contact with all 20 of them. Every single one of them, their practices are growing. All of them. They have made more money since, they've collected more and saw more visits since, and that was 3 weeks ago. In 3 weeks, to pay for an entire year's worth of coaching. And my heart is so happy. And this is where my passion comes from, is being able to help. So just reach out to me, and it's mvnbonz@yahoo.com. Send me an email if you want more information. I'm here to help you. That's why I did this morning.
Thanks again for your time today, Tim. And what we'll do is we'll put your website and your email in the show notes. With the discount offer, if anyone's listening to this in their cards, we'll put it in the show notes so they can have a look at it afterwards. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please make sure to follow and subscribe to our Clinic Scale podcast. We are dropping new episodes every single week. And you can also sign up for our newsletter through the link in the show notes as well, and follow me on Instagram at Dr. Andy Kurt and Facebook, Andy Kurt Clinic Scale, for daily clinic growth content, systems, and mindsets for scale. Dr. Tim, thank you again for sharing your time and legacy with us. Thank you for everything you do for our profession. And this one is going to shift a lot of minds, I am sure of that.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate your time. And everybody watching, thank you for your attention. This is probably the most professionally ran podcast, one of the best ones I've ever done. So thank you, Andy, for your time.
Appreciate you, Tim. Take care. All the best.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.